Well, greetings again. This is Dr. Bill Wyatt with the American Orthodontic Society. And we've been doing these videos for some time now and have a whole slew of them. And I'd like to pass on some of the things that I learned several years ago. Now, my wife and I, with 3 of our children, went to Nigeria, West Africa, as missionaries. And so I learned a lot of things from the African people there. And this was quite a while ago, 1961, I think is when we went. And we stayed 3 solid years before we came home. And there's a few things I'd like to pass on. And one of them is about cysts that we saw in Africa. Now I've got a video on cysts we saw here where the slow way to correct one, and then the faster way as the old surgeon does, but not near as good as the slow way to fix the cyst. Well, let's get on this, and we'll hurry through it. There's no pictures. I just have to draw on here. Well, we had this dental clinic in Ibadan, Nigeria, and it had been there and operated with other operating dentists that had taken care of that. We enlarged it after we got there, but anyway, a gentleman was sent into my office, and he had a chin that looked like as large as my wrist here, and it just looked like a massive chin that he had. And so they had sent him from the hospital up in the Bomshaw for me to do something with. And they had a drain hole underneath the chin right here. It was about as large as your finger. And I had a little flashlight, and I put that flashlight, in fact, I think it was a little light about like this. I put it up there and shined up in that opening in that cyst, and his whole jawbone was enlarged by this cyst. And the teeth, we were looking at it from the bottom, and the teeth were hanging down, the roots of the teeth, and like these stalactites in the cave, you see things just hanging down like this all the way around. And I never saw anything like that. And nothing anywhere that great would come about here in the States or even today in Africa. I'm sure that somebody would correct it before it got like that. But this young man could not speak any of the languages that our young people that worked in the office spoke. And so we looked around up in there, and I had planned to pack otiform gauze back up in that opening, just keep it open for a number of months, and the jaw would shrink up. And this was what I thought would happen. But the young man got afraid, and he couldn't understand us, and he left, and he never came back again. And I don't know whatever happened to him. He may have passed away or something like that. But I wish that he had given us a chance to see if that cyst would shrink up just like normal cysts do. But he left and did not work. And so I left unknowing what would happen to this person. And this was about the worst cyst I've ever seen in my life. And later on, we were in charge of another dental mission in Nigeria, in Enugu, over in eastern Nigeria, and we had a policeman came in to me one day, and he had a cyst in his lower jaw here, about the size of a small hen egg, and it swelled way out here, and we opened that up, and of course it had a thin shell of bone over it, but cysts just kind of grow in there, and they push out, and the fluid can go in, but it can't get out, and they just keep getting bigger. Now this was a follicular cyst that had developed around the crown of a cuspid that had been impacted in there. Now, so in his case, we opened it up and had a good opening to it, and then I did pack iodoform gauze in there, and we kept coming back for several, actually it took a couple of them, 3 months I think, before it completely shrank down to nothing. And so the epithelial tissue of the cyst actually became part of the tissue around the cuspid as it came out like that. But this cyst was about as big as a hen egg. You never see anything like that. Well, you might see that larger cyst here in the States, but not normally. And so this was something that I learned, and I thought I'd pass that on. If you leave a cyst alone, it can make a cyst out of your whole jawbone like that. Now there were other things that happened there in an area where there was very little care for things that went wrong with children. And one day there in Nigeria, we had some of the nurses from out in the bush were there, and I had them around, and a young lady about probably 9 or something like that came in, and she had these deciduous teeth on the, I think it was the left side of her mouth, were all dark and looked bad and everything. And I said, well, we'll have to get in here and see what's wrong with this. And I caught a hold of one of them and started to see what was actually wrong. And I could tell that the teeth were attached to the bone structure in the maxilla on the left side of her mouth. And to take that out, I had to open the tissue, and this whole side of her maxilla just came out in a large piece of bone structure that was dead. And I nearly, I tell you, it shocked the dickens out of me. And I took it and I showed one of these nurses that was there from out in the bush. And she said, oh, well, we see these quite frequently out in the area where they were, and they learned how to take them out and just let it just healed back up. But the person just wouldn't have that part of their maxilla. And it was shocking to me, though, to catch a hold of that and that whole bone structure come out that way. So I learned something there that it just burned into my memory, and I can see that bone structure coming out, the whole piece of bone of that left side of the maxilla, the teeth up there and everything, and that's something. So I thought I'd bring those things to your mind here, to just be grateful you live here in the United States, and in, well, I'm sure there are people that take care of that. This was a good many years ago in Nigeria, and there's nobody to take care of it like that. I had one other incident the hospital sent a young man to me with a broken jaw, and I had worked about 6 years in the States before we went as missionaries there to Africa. And this young man comes in with a broken jaw, and I just happened to have one of these things you wire onto the upper teeth and the broken teeth, jaw down on the bottom. I pulled it up and got it in place and just wired it to the upper teeth, and had a metal deal fits around the upper, and also we would fit it on the bottom, and we wired the jaw together, and the man lived, and his jaw grew back together. And I had heard about it and knew what you had to do, but I had never done anything like that. And so this was 3 or 4 things that I learned there that you would never get an opportunity here in the States to do something like that. So that was very encouraging to me. So I thank you for watching, and I'm going to come back and show you some other things that we learned there in Africa too. Now they say, Benjamin Franklin said, a learning by experience is a wonderful thing. But he said only a fool will learn by no other. So we learn by other people's experience. And now today we can go to AI and ask information on anything you can think about, and it'll give you the latest information on that particular subject. It may not be accurate completely, but it'll be about as much as is known about that thing. So I thank you again, and we'll hope to see you back with another video about things we learned in Africa. So I'll say goodbye, and I hope you'll join our group and subscribe to our channel. And we thank you very much, and I'll say farewell for just a short time here. Bye-bye.